This is Scorched Vine, a Vin Noir's production. Hope's Nocturne, written by OPL Noir, performed by Carrie Storm. 1. Meeting Hope's unfortunate, destitute boy. Last spring. That's a whole lot of the family's portable assets on display. Amanda heard her father's observation looping through her head again, whether he was referring to the ample bosom overflowing her mother's décolletage, or the diamonds tantalizingly positioned at her cleavage. She wasn't certain. Amanda, grab your hat, her father had said. The line between his brows was as deep as a canyon as he glared at her mother. You're going to see who's at this little gathering for me, he'd ordered. It had been too exciting an assignment to ignore. Amanda's pace quickened, drawing closer to the action. While she was focusing on the conversation between the women, the theme to her favorite television show started to play in her head. The mission, should you choose to accept it, Amanda smiled. Challenge? Accepted. It's obvious they spared no expense on the closed coffin. Leah sighed, her normally high pitch diving to lower registers. Inching closer to Amelia, she whispered a scathing critique of the function. Her sensibilities were scandalized. I didn't know they came in iridescent blue, she chuckled. But the dogwood flowers along the nave, around the church and altar, were a nice touch, she offered as consolation. I thought Father Lego's eulogy seemed a bit short. Didn't you? Amelia gave a noncommittal shrug. I didn't notice, but I did observe who was missing, Amelia said, while hoisting her bustier higher and fiddling with the hem of her shirt. I'll tell you what I think. Amanda wished she could interject. Forgetting herself, she let out an indignant, if not indelicate, snort at the two women, thick as thieves, walking in front of her. If I had to stand in that hot church a minute longer, I would have barfed, she thought, but tossed them an angelic smile as they glanced back. And while I have your attention, I think that this little mourners' procession is a complete waste of time. She arched her eyebrows at them, especially since we are neither related to nor care about the dead woman. She fumed behind her pasted-on grin, trudging along behind her mother and Leah. And if she hoists those babies any higher, she's going to need help walking. I should have worn the stupid hat like Dad suggested. She suppressed a sigh, glancing first up at the midday sun, then down at the hot, cracked pavement, radiating heat up through her sandals. I hope there'll at least be more food at the gathering, Leah continued, apparently unperturbed by Amelia's non-committal responses. Amen, Amanda agreed. And this dish, she glanced down at the sausages, is all mine. There had been an appalling lack of lentil soup. And who in their right mind serves cucumber sandwiches at a wake? Amelia guffawed. And did you realize there wasn't an ounce of potato casserole in sight? Amelia glanced towards her friend, smirking at the outrageous faux pas. You always serve comfort food at a wake, even if it's a mix and mingle, Leah said, obviously just warming up. And while we're on the subject, why go to all that trouble? A wake with little food, a beautiful closed casket in a big funeral with no pallbearers, and no organ music, especially since so few knew the woman. Amelia stopped walking and finally chirped in, leaning conspiratorially toward her best friend, and even fewer seemed to like or accept her. Then why on earth are we going? Amanda grumbled, pulling on the hand-me-down bell-bottoms her mother made her wear. And can we please not stop? It's too hot for all the histrionics. And for the record, I hate green. Well, yes, Leah said, sounding shocked at actually getting a response. I would think that a small graveside service would have been more in keeping with their, she hissed as they started walking again. You know, their circumstances, she huffed. Another hot and pointless function you forced me to attend, Amanda thought, frowning at the back of their heads as she remembered the thick, heavy air at the funeral. I swear, if it weren't for the existence of a genuine mystery, you never would have found me here. The family jewel caper case, she thought, then smiled up at a cloudless azure sky, deciding to name it. But something big is going to break through. I can feel it, she consoled herself. The reason for the closed casket? Amelia whispered. The roads were washed out. It delayed the coroner from collecting her body. Apparently, no one seemed interested in helping with refrigeration, she said, concluding her list. You can imagine the state of things if they were willing to forgo the repast. That's disturbing, Amanda grimaced, her stomach's contents lurching. And hush, even for you, Mum. Blunt, abrasive, and even crude were adjectives used in conjunction with her mother, but this was beyond the pale. While she had no knowledge of the recently departed, Amanda immediately felt a kinship with the woman. She often found herself on the receiving end of that unfailingly critical tongue and knew just how sharp it could be. As for the expense, Amelia continued, the family can barely afford food, but as usual, Macon's arrogance knows no bounds. She hissed the man's name through clenched teeth, as if saying it actually caused her pain. I hope when we arrive, the idiot won't be there. Amanda bit her cheek to avoid discovery, successfully stifling another snort. Her mother's statement, however, seemed callous yet contradictory. First, whatever happened to respect for the dead? Isn't that the reason behind attending this gathering? And why would you prefer him gone? If his arrogance knows no bounds, and he can't afford food, why wouldn't he be there? If for no other reason but the need to eat, she wondered, scowling at the women. If he's the motivation for all this, I'll be very angry. They don't want to see me when I'm angry. I'd rather be anywhere with air conditioning than baking in this blistering sun for people I don't know and don't like, she sighed, thinking about the deceased woman and her family. But even I wouldn't say something so mean, she scoffed, glowering at the back of their heads now. Amanda whimpered at a twinge of pain along the inside of her cheek. A sore in her mouth had reopened as she bit down. She'd used more force than intended. Her pediatrician once told her parents that the sores were her body's response to stress. Her mother, however, disagreed, insisting she could use stronger mouthwash and a recommendation for a new doctor. No one criticized Amelia, least of all her parenting style. Polyester straps rubbing against a burgeoning sunburn on her shoulders didn't help. Being forced to wear restrictive clothes in a color she despised and in a style that was 2 years outdated also did nothing to improve Amanda's disposition. During the week, she was dressed in her uniform, a checkered navy blue and white dress. No one knew she wasn't a size 2 like her sister. No one cared whether she wasn't up to date on all the fashions or often wore hand-me-downs at home. No one knew. At her little elementary school, she had blended in, or blended as best as she could. With tight orange curls, freckles, jade-colored eyes, and skin tone a couple shades darker than anyone in her family, she had made an art form out of her ability to blend in, insisting her uniform be baggy and a shade darker than necessary, and wearing restrictive undergarments that diminished the appearance of her budding breasts, were her way of rejecting trends. She rebelled against her mother's insistence on displaying her like some fetid pig. These differences made her classmates question her origins. Nicknames such as Milk, short for milkman, as in the milkman's child, or the milkman didn't knock twice, started circulating about her, even among the adults. Today's promenade through their neighborhood, with its paved yards, low wrought iron fences, and discreetly cracked jalousies, made her squirm. She didn't have to stretch her imagination to see the many eyeballs staring at them from behind the slats. Yes, in a place where even weeds refused to grow, they were being scrutinized. Anyone with scruples would rethink this choice. As if I had a choice, she moaned under the glare of the midday sun. Again, how am I the darkest in my family, but the one who burns the worst? she thought, anticipating the raised bumps on her exposed skin, which would burn when she perspired and then turn into blisters. "I bit my tongue," Amanda explained when both women paused, glaring back at her again. "Then stop chewing gum," Amelia hissed, bending down, bringing her face within inches of Amanda's. "It's unseemly for a young woman to whistle or chew like a cow. Young girls should be seen and not heard." When their morbid banter resumed, Amanda's shoulders relaxed. Crisis averted, she thought. Eschewing caution, she again tiptoed closer. While outraged by the callousness of their conversation or the idea of being picked apart and gossiped about by the neighbors, she had a job to do. This case wouldn't solve itself, and despite everything, her interests were still piqued at the prospect of this mystery. What had been the woman's cause of death? And why did her neighbors shun her? She wondered. What's the reason behind the villagers' vitriol? Perhaps for religious or superstitious reasons? And how do the jewels and excessive décolletage tie in? Don't call the poor man an idiot, Leah scowled. He just buried his wife. She shook her head as Amelia guffawed. Anyway, I don't understand something. Why was no one willing to help with the... Leah paused, as if searching for her missing tact. Refrigeration? She finished, outrage dripping from that last word. And where else would the man be hours after the funeral? Really, Amelia. Finally, a reasonable response. Amanda glared at them, grateful that Leah had some of the same questions she had. She inched even closer, wishing she could retrieve her notepad while waiting for the answer. "Spare me your scowl, Leah," Amelia said, then threw her head back and chuckled. "I knew that poor man," she admitted, shaking her head, then applying another layer of lipstick. You have been listening to part 1 of chapter 1 of Hope's Nocturne. This is Carrie Storm. Please, if you guys enjoyed these episodes every Thursday, please subscribe. And if you can't wait for the rest, you can purchase the book soon wherever books are sold. Until then, you can join me every Thursday when we'll have a new episode.